This is the ACME Thermotrol 9000. This is what we're going to make today. It's got a digital temperature control on the inside. You can use it to either increase the heat, raise the temperature on something, or to decrease the temperature on something. It'll do either heating or cooling. It runs 120 volts at 10 amps. The controller comes off of Amazon, and it's the cheap ones only come in Celsius, but so you'll have to convert it. But I made this whole thing for about less than $20. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about how this works. And right now I've got it set that we want it to keep the temperature at about 20, I think it was either 20 or 21 degrees Celsius. So we're going to plug this extension cord in and then use this night light as our heater. Alright, and so right now you can see it's cooler than that, and we've got it flipped to heat, so it has turned on our heating element right here. So now if we take our temperature probe, take our temperature probe right here, and I'm just going to put it between my fingers to warm it up. I could hold it over the light over here. And you're going to see it's going up 20, 21, and it turns off. So, you could use this to, you could plug a heating pad in to here and put a bowl of bread dough on top of it. Stick this temperature probe between the bowl and the heating pad, or put it all inside of a box and tell this what temperature you wanted to raise your dough at, and it would turn that heating pad on and off until it keep the box warm. You could use it to control a brooder lamp for chickens. You could also use this to brew beer. A lot of people buy these to control the brewing process for beer, and there's just a lot of different. The thing I'll probably mainly do with it is use it to keep the temperature correct for bread rising. And then you can see we got down below 21 degrees and it has kicked our light back on. If I hold that, heat it up a little bit, it'll kick right back off. And you're seeing it continue to coast up just a little bit because I'm warming it really quickly by squeezing on that, and that bulb's continuing to hold just a little bit of heat. Alright, let's get started and I'll show you how I made it. I've got the aluminum plate that's going to go on top of our box, and I've got the holes drilled out for it. They're just inset halfway inside of the wooden edge. So I'm going to take these calipers and just draw me a groove here so it'll help me get this centered. I'm going to go back and run a pencil. Then I'm going to look down through these holes and center that pencil line. I'm feeling too, I want to make sure I've got a little bit of aluminum hanging off of all the edges so it'll trim off nice and smooth. I'm going to take an awl and mark these two spots. And then I'm going to put a couple of screws in there to hold this down while I trim it off. Alright, that's got it aligned on there pretty well. And next thing we need to do is I'm going to take it in and run it on the router and cut that aluminum nice and flush to the sides. This is my old Craftsman router table from, I don't know, maybe the 80s or something like that. And anyway, I've got just like a Formica trim bit. Well, I've got just like a Formica trim bit in here. It's carbide. It's got carbide edges on it and a bearing up here at the top. And you can cut aluminum with these. You want to feed it, just a little bit slower. Don't take, real fast cuts or something like that, but it'll work great. Here we go. Alright, that's got our sides trimmed. Okay, so we got the edges trimmed on the router, and so the next thing I want to do is just give this a sand and make sure that it's nice and smooth and flat. Okay, these edges are kind of sharp, so I'm just going to hit them real quick with a file. Just any kind of a fine file will work. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is put a decal on the top of this, and then we're going to use that as a template to cut the holes out for our components. Alright, I got a decal that I printed on a laser printer. It's on some white decal paper. And I designed it in Inkscape, which is a free program online. And so I'm just letting that soak. I've got our aluminum, it's been sanded and it's ready to put the decal on. I want to make sure I don't have any dirt under it. And on this decal, there's supposed to be a box around it. I got a little trim happy when I was cutting it and cut it off, but it's just right there at the edge. That's just to help align it. That'll eventually get cut off. This white stuff, I've used the clear and this white. I've not used any of it very much. But the white, I've had trouble getting it to slide. So, anyway, I'll put just a little bit of water on here. And I'm going to peel it off. It should just slip off to the side. For some reason, this white doesn't like to do that. You can peel it off. You gotta be careful you don't stretch it. So if there's somebody out there that knows what I'm not doing right, alright, that's got it on there. And so I'm going to let this dry and then I'll come back. Our panel's dry and the decal's on there really well. I put a couple of coats of spray acrylic, just Krylon clear spray acrylic. And now what I'm going to do is mount it in the mill, and I'm going to mill out these pockets right here and drill that one out. And hopefully it won't pull the decal up. We'll see. Alright, the way I'm going to mount this in the mill is I'm just going to take a piece of wood, because this is going to be too flimsy. And I'm going to just stick the thing down to this piece of wood, so then I can attach that into the vise. And I'm just going to use some double stick tape in order to stick that down. Alright, over to the mill. Alright, so I've got this mounted in here, and I'm going to drill this hole out first. I've got a 13/16 end mill in here, and I'm going to use that to cut out these openings. So this is it right off of there, and you can see there's some burrs along here. I want to be real careful with that because I don't want to scratch up anything. So I'm going to try to get this loose from that tape. There we go. Okay, so now what I can do is just take a file and kind of go at it. Alright, let me get our components and let's see how those fit. It's our digital thermostat. And that pops in there. Now, part of the problem is my aluminum is too thick, and the those little ears, I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, over here, see that ear's not popping up on there. So I'm going to undercut this just a little bit. Okay, well that was enough. It won't fall out now. I added one hole right here. I realized I needed a hole for the sensor wire to come out. So I'm going to install this grommet right here. Okay. I'll use that to pull the sensor wire through. And this is the wiring diagram for what we're getting ready to do. Alright, so I'm going to get these installed. My power cord is just a cord off a computer. I just cut the end off of it and had, you know, an extra one laying around. Now when you split that insulation, be sure that you don't cut down into these wires here. If you do, you'll have to cut it off and redo it. Alright, I'm going to go and I'm going to drill a hole into the back of this so that I can go ahead and bring in my wires.
Pray like everything depends on God, and I hope and I pray that we can get a huge change.
Alright, so that's got all our components in the front. We've got our grommet for our signal line, the little thermometer that goes out to read the temperature. This is our switch. This will control either a heater or something to cool something. And then here's our outlet where you're going to plug in either your heater or your cooler. Alright, this is our panel turned upside down, and this is our outlet right here, and this is the power coming in from the end of our cord. So I'm going to take these and I'm going to solder the ground to the ground tab of the outlet, and I'm going to solder the negative side to the negative side of the outlet, and then I have to power this with 120 volts too. So I'll need one leg of the white to come off and go into right here to power the power supply. So let me get that done. Okay, so what we've done so far is the ground wire is connected to our outlet, the negative wire is connected to our outlet, and then a wire is also connected there and comes off and runs this side of the power supply. And then that's the end of what we're doing with the negative wire. Now, the black wire coming out, or the positive side, is coming out, and it goes in to the number 1 hole for to provide power to the thermostat. And then we need that power to also power either our heater or our cooler. So another wire comes out of there and comes over to the relay for heating. And then we've done another jumper from that same spot over to number 7 to power the cooling side. Okay? Because what will happen is when this thermostat trips, it'll trip whatever power you're providing in number 5, it'll send it to number 6 if it's trying to heat something up, and it'll move it from whatever power you apply to terminal 7, it will send to terminal 8 if it's trying to cool. Okay, so we've got our power linked to those. So now the next thing we need to do is get the other side of that relay connected to our outlet so it can go out to either our heater or our cooler depending on what we're doing. Now this switch right here is going to determine, the way I've got it set up, I could have done 2 outlets and had one that you would plug things in to heat with and one to plug things in to cool with, but I'm not ever probably even going to use the cooling function of this. So I just put a switch in here, but if I did want to, I could switch it down to cool and then attach this to some type of a chiller to make that work. So we've got to send the power from this relay to the switch, because we're going to send the heating to one side, the cooling to the other, and then we're going to attach the other side of our outlet to this middle prong of the switch so that we can switch whether we're getting our power from the cooling side or the heating side. Alright, so let's get that done. All right, let's review what we just did. Okay, so now we've wired up our switch, and this switch is a double pole, double throw, and it really doesn't need to be double pole. It could have been a single pole, double throw, because we're only using one side of it. But when you buy these, they're the same price. So I usually buy the double pole, double throw, and then I can use them for whatever I want. But okay, so our outlet is powered through our power cord with the white and then the ground. Okay, the black side is connected to it through this switch and through these relays. So let's kind of trace it backwards. So it comes through and it attaches to the center pole of our switch. When you switch it one way, it'll connect these 2 wires. When you switch it the other way, it'll connect these 2 wires. So whichever way you switch it, it's going to send power to the outlet depending on whether it's trying to heat or cool. So then this wire comes over and attaches to the cooling side. So when you switch it to cool, it's going to show that. And then this wire is going over here to the heating side. Alright, so that's got all of our wiring together. The last thing we have to do is get our sensor put on there. Alright, that's got all of our wiring done. Let me go get a wire tie to put on here so this can't get pulled back through that hole. Alright, so I've got a wire tie started on here. I'm just going to pull it down good and tight, and then I can pull that back through. Alright, and that's going to sit there like that. Alright, let's go ahead, let's plug it in and make sure it works. Alright, we've got power, and it's telling us that it's trying to cool right now, but let's see if that's telling us what the current temperature is. Let me peel that off. Let me put my fingers on here and we'll see if it starts going up. Yeah, 20.7, 8, 9, 21, and this is in Celsius. The only ones I could find that were cheap come in Celsius, so I'll just have to kind of convert it as I use it. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is get this screwed down. Alright, that's got it all screwed down, and we're almost through with it. You want to be careful when you tighten these down. If you tighten them down too much, you'll twist the decal and mess it up. So I was tightening it down until I got it as tight as I wanted, or until I started seeing the decal twist a little bit, then I would stop. Alright, so it's printed on there and you can just barely see it. And I've got to get it me see. Okay, just hoping I get this lined up right. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so that was made in Inkscape, in the same program that we made the decal in, and you print it on the back of. I got this how to do this off of website called Woodworking for Mere Mortals, and if you look up inkjet transfer to wood, it'll come up. But this is one of those slick pages where you take the labels off and you print it. You have to reverse the image on here, and then it stays wet, and you just rub it on there, and so that has now transferred to there. Now I sanded this nice and flat, and then of course we just put that on there. So the next thing I'll do is then I'll spray some clear acrylic over the top of that to seal it in. So okay, the next thing we got to do is get the lid on. So we're going to put the lid on like that, and then I've got these little brass hinges that came off of, you can get, if you're patient, you can get them out of China for almost nothing. And that's got our box made. Well, I hope this project will be helpful to somebody, and if you get a chance, make one of these. Thank you for watching.